David in the background who's going to assist if a wheel falls off. But good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining our round table, and a big thank you to our panelists for joining today. They will introduce themselves shortly. I'm Andrew Waldridge, and I will be your facilitator for this session. Just to explain what will be happening, we will have a 60-minute together, 60 minutes together. After a quick introduction from me, I'm going to hand over to 4 panelists. I've got Will Todd, Sophie Walker, Michelle Peters, and David Randall, who will each introduce themselves and give a short presentation on their specific topics. After these introductory presentations, I will lead, or hope to lead, a 20-minute panel discussion. We will then have 20 minutes for questions from the audience. We would love to hear your questions, participate. You can ask them at any time using the chat functionality, or you can just use your hand symbol or virtually raise your hand, and then I can unmute you to speak. Other than when you are asking a question, can you please stay on mute? No crisp packets in the background, and I hope you enjoy the session. Okay, so it's now time to introduce the panelists, starting with Will Todd, and you've got around 4 minutes, Will.
Okay, that's great, thank you.
I'm sorry, yes, sorry, Will. I think David may well be sharing the slide, or will I, David?
No, I've got it, I think.
Thank you so much, David.
There we go.
Okay, great, thank you. So, well, I'm Will, I'm the MD of a business called Carbon Architecture. We are, I guess, slightly beyond a startup, but nothing on the scale of WSP. We're based just in Hampton, actually, and we work probably 50% with the public sector, 50% with the private sector, and our business is all about energy saving, carbon reduction, really. And we're primarily a bunch of engineers to an extent, and some sustainability professionals. So today, I thought I would just share you a case study of one of our clients, really, to see how they are addressing the challenge of becoming net zero. So it's a big topic at the moment, net zero, and for a lot of businesses. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd share how one of our clients, a big pub chain, is addressing that. So this pub chain has about 250 pubs, which they manage themselves, and then a further couple of thousand which are leased and tenanted. And so the scope of this covers, I guess, mostly their direct pub chain, but also that wider base that they do own the buildings for. And when we think about net zero, what does that mean? That concept's pretty complex to a lot of people, and actually it's not always. It's defined by different people in different ways. So, but for a pub business, that, you know, on any other business, we believe it's about trying to break that into, I guess, simple steps that you can work with and understand, and make it accessible. So, and for a pub chain, I guess some of the challenges there are how can they move and transition their business to having a net zero carbon impact, but also remain productive, and how do they do that with like a high turnover of staff? So the average shelf life of a staff member in a pub is something like 12 to 18 months, and that's a real challenge if you're asking people to change their behaviour in any sort of permanent way. So they set out 4 main objectives, which was to find a route to become net zero carbon by 2040, to try and reduce their energy consumption by in excess of like 10% in the short term, to try and help fund some of the work, and find a way to embed the sorts of savings long term and maintain or improve even like high levels of guest comfort. Could I have the next slide, please? And I think one of the challenges is the pub business is, you know, quite cash strapped, and how do they maintain profitability whilst trying to drive themselves forward, you know? So we helped them, and the approach they've taken is, I guess, what we would call that sort of 50% human, 50% technology. So I've got a few areas to cover off that they thought about here. So the human bit, well, that was really us working with them to help them understand and model and map their potential route to net zero. So what does that mean? So they had to understand what are called their scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions. Scope 1 and 2 are basically the things that are directly within their control. So their energy consumption, the amount of waste they generate, the amount of water they use. And then scope 3, which is often a very much bigger component, is through their supply chain. So that's emissions that others make on behalf of them. So if you've got a pub, it's people brewing beer for them, making drinks for them. It's the food that they take on board. And then when they dispatch waste from their sites, so you've got waste glass, waste food, how that's treated. So the first bit was us helping them understand what is their footprint as a business and what are the hotspots in that footprint that they're able to address. And the second bit was how then we then started really, what they wanted to do was take action, and they decided to take action in the first instance on their direct footprint, the things that are right within their control. So this focused on their pub estate itself. So behavioural change. So how are they going to establish some processes that will save energy and water and waste? And so we helped embed and empower each of their sites and the people at their sites by helping them implement a standard called the Green Mark, which is like a site-based environmental certification. And they accredit with that every year, and that includes elements of training and improvement. And so that's what we've helped them do, and use that to build awareness through their business. And then the third and fourth bits are the use of hard data. So we've helped them implement analytics software and analytics technology that helps them, I guess, analyze and identify opportunities in their pub chain on an ongoing basis based on things like consumption of energy data and its patterns, and it allows them to measure and verify their progress over time. And then fourthly, whilst it's not shown on here, we help them come up with like a staged investment plan for the next 20 years of what they need to invest in and by when in order to achieve a decarbonisation profile. And just like was mentioned in the previous presentation, heat pumps are a big feature in that actually. The biggest challenge for a lot of these businesses, certainly in reducing their direct footprint, is how to decarbonise heat. Could I have the next slide, please? So for these people, actually, the results were really good and continue to be really good. So within 9 months of the inception of this project, they've reduced their energy bill by 17.5%, and that was worth a significant amount of money to them. And they've secured a route to net zero, which they believe is affordable. So commercial potential reality by 2035, so sooner than they were planning on. And that's going to deliver about 0.7 million of savings in energy costs and other costs as well, of direct costs across their portfolio whilst implemented. And it's going to have quite a big impact, 5,300 tonnes a year of potential carbon savings. So I guess they're delighted, but what they did that I would recommend to others is to try and break this down into bite-sized steps and understand what are the things that matter, what are the things that are within your control to change, what are the things that other people are doing for you that you can influence, and what's just happening anyway. Okay, and I think that's probably me. Is there one more slide? Yeah, and there are my contact details should anybody wish to get in touch with me in the future.
Absolutely fascinating, Will. Thank you very much. Very informative and much needed. Our next 4 and a bit minutes is going to come from Sophie Walker. There we go, Sophie. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. It's been really great to hear from all the other speakers so far, and I've been really heartened with the sort of, the general, the tone of everything. So yeah, can I have the next slide, please? So yeah, I'm Sophie. I'm the COO and co-founder of Disposal. We build software to demystify the world of waste. And along with our sister social enterprise, Your Disposal, we're on a mission to empower people and organisations to make better decisions with their rubbish through digitalisation and data. And our vision is for a world in which the materials that flow through our economies as waste are instead recognised and treated as the valuable resources that they are. Next slide, please. So much of the stuff that we produce and consume has such a longer life after it's discarded than while it's actually in use, and yet we have almost no visibility of its journey once it's thrown away. Like the current system leaves most of us detached from the fate of our waste once we put it in the bin. And you only need to look at the headlines and pictures like this to see that it often ends up where it shouldn't. Next slide, please. So we believe that if we can give people and organisations the tools and data and knowledge to understand their waste better, they'll be able to make better choices about where it ends up. And that if treated appropriately, our waste can actually be an asset and a resource and not a burden. And that is a big step towards a more circular economy, and it opens up the door to new business models and ways of doing things, which embrace the sharing economy and redesign and reuse and repair. And resource efficiency is often overlooked, but it has the potential to achieve huge cuts to our carbon budget, as shown in this chart from the Green Alliance. But we need to start gathering the data on all the stuff that's handled by the waste industry so that we know what it is, how much there is, who's doing what with it, and where it is. And currently, as a country, we just don't have that data. The digital systems make it much easier to gather, store, analyze, and share data. And we've been able to develop our software because of open data. And we think that it is vital for innovation, for the transition to a circular economy, to have more open data infrastructure. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, the waste industry is digitally immature and lacking in much of the necessary data infrastructure. So where we see gaps that open data could help to fill, we're looking to build these foundations to enable the sort of transition. So your disposal, with funding and support from the Open Data Institute, recently released an open data standard of information around council waste and recycling centres, and we have a prototype open data set of this information. So this came about after we saw more than 600% increase in traffic to our website pages that have information on household waste recycling centres, or what used to be referred to as the TIP, during the first lockdown. And so we collaborated with a really broad range of stakeholders on this project, and we found that local authorities are incredibly keen actually to adopt the Open 3R standard, as they can see how it can help them to better communicate with the public and improve their recycling rates. And even though it's only very, very recently been kind of finished, we're already seeing some innovations and use cases coming off the back of this open data standard and data set, which is why we think it is so critical that we build these data foundations. Next slide, please. So this is a map that shows where users of our platform have logged in from over the last 6 months. And I wanted to put this on here just to kind of show that there is a business case. I mean, lots of people have made this case already, but people are interested in this stuff. And this has been driven by us creating useful content to help people better manage their waste. And we believe it should be much easier to do the right thing with your waste. And it's something that we call passive compliance, where essentially doing the right thing is the easiest thing. So we've developed a tool called a waste thesaurus. And for example, that's been used by tens of thousands of people all over the world to help them to correctly classify their waste. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, at the moment, it is far too easy to do the wrong thing, and serious and organised crime are taking huge advantage of the industry. A European Commission report published in March found that the UK's estimated income from the illegal waste market is estimated to be around 2.6 billion euros. And horrifyingly, 64% of the UK's hazardous waste disappears from the legitimate industry. We don't know what happens to it. Next slide, please. So yeah, we build software to make it easier to be compliant and to keep waste out of the hands of illegal operators. And I recently won a Women in Innovation Award from Innovate UK for a project that we're doing to improve waste management in NHS trusts. So we're working with Manchester University NHS Foundation Trust and are looking to engage with other trusts in the course of the project. And what we're doing is building on our existing compliance dashboard to enable waste managers at these sorts of complex waste producing sites to understand their waste contracts, monitor performance, spot problematic waste streams or contractor compliance issues, and to give them the sort of detailed environmental reporting on waste that they currently lack but really do require. And then I think it's my last slide, please. So yeah, that's it. Thanks very much. I'm looking forward to discussing more of this afterwards, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Sophie, that was fantastic, brilliant. It's clearly a powerful business case with respect to the open data, crime. Always reconnaissance is rarely wasted on that sort of thing. Now I'm blithering, so our next speaker, 4 minutes, is going to be Michelle Peters. Michelle, the floor is yours.
Thank you, just hold on a second. Hi everybody, I haven't got any slides today, so I'm just going to tell you about the case of Paragon and our journey in relation to providing cleaning services. My name is Michelle Peters. I am the founder and managing director of Paragon, the green cleaning company, and we are actually based in Surrey. To share a little bit of my background, I have worked in the cleaning industry as a director now for 30 years, and 23 years of those using traditional cleaning chemicals to achieve results for our businesses and our clients. Back in 2014, I took some time out and, following extensive research on eco-responsible cleaning chemicals, I set up Paragon on environmentally responsible foundations. Now, originally, I thought I was not going to find a supplier that would meet the areas that I was concerned about. It's certainly been a journey, and one I am so glad to have taken. Not only has my research changed my mindset about what we choose to use within our environment, but more than ever, it is vital to obtain knowledge and education to understand the choices we make affect not only our planet's ecosystems, but our own health and well-being. And for years, you would just pick things off the shelf and you'd think that that's fine because it's there, it must be okay. So wrong are you. It's not just about cleaning. So Paragon has grown and we provide meaning conversations with all our clients, and we support all other areas in the business, whether it's window cleaning, waste management, hygiene management, consumable supplying, recycling programs, and basically taking part in campaigns that build awareness to our planet's plastic problem and the habitat and the habits that we are doing cause, so much waste and pollution. To find the eco-responsible cleaning products, I actually needed to find a manufacturer that was placing the planet before profit in my mind. People and places matter, and that was the difference that I wanted to make. They would need to show me that traditional cleaning products and the manufacturing methods that are used are not the only option to us. I then also realised, doing all this, that I actually should have listened more intently in chemistry class in school, because it is all about chemistry and about what's happening to these chemicals in our planet. Although I'm no way a chemist, I leave that to my trusted manufacturer and the cleaning products we use at Paragon. So you might be wondering, what do we use? So we use a company that from 2007, when it was formed, only had this in mind. They haven't been a company that has changed what they've done before. This is where they started off. So I was very excited about that. And I've got a big tick list that they needed to achieve for me, but obviously it's going to go well over 4 or 5 minutes. But the company we actually use and always have is Delphis Eco Professional Cleaning Products. If greener cleaning is our business, then we need to provide a transparent reason to show how we can offer sustainable cleaning. If you go to the DEFRA website, they will tell you how to provide sustainable cleaning in your business. And it's amazing how not many people know that. The stages we experience with the demand in our services since 2014, mainly in the beginning, it was still about clients not experience the service they're expecting from their current provider. And of course, there's always many reasons for that. And a lot of the time, it's just about communication is broken down. But then we started taking bookings, clients needing us to take allergies into consideration. Following that, we were, for example, we had businesses in central London who would contact us only because they wanted eco-responsible cleaning company. Happy with the team of cleaners that they had, but they were not happy with the chemicals that were being used in their environment indoors. when we go to any client, we review and provide a proposal, of course. We share our knowledge and benefits, and we always look into the cleaning cupboard. And I always make a note of what's inside. And more often now, our clients, we're showing them how they can implement their responsibility and sustainability for being part of the net zero and reducing their CO2, especially if they are going through a procurement process themselves for their own prospective clients, which now cleaning and how they run their offices is very much part of that process. Just to really finish off, the factors which stimulate the demand for our services have been, to date, interest and the knowledge that we have regarding sustainable cleaning, the cleaning products we use and their benefits and the difference between using them and others, the impact on carbon reduction perspective, for example, replacing virgin plastic with PCR, which is post-consumer recycled material. This provides a massive reduction in carbon, astounding. Thinking about health and well-being for the environment, not just indoors. We also share obviously our knowledge about how this affects our ecosystems, our wildlife and our oceans. And obviously we all know that already. And really just finally to finish off, we have been involved in campaigns, and during the fight last year with COVID, there was a shortage of trigger sprays, hand soap pumps and flip tops because we couldn't get those. They're all made in China and Northern Italy. And together, Paragon with Sunray Recycle, based in Tolworth, and the Salmon magazine got involved, and we supported Delphis Eco and First Mile with their Tops Off campaign. It's actually a lot of fun, but in actual fact, we had a massive response from local businesses and beyond, and we collected over 30 kilos of these tops. And we encourage for that still to happen, and we're still doing that. And it really does make a difference because these tops just get washed, disinfected and reused instead of ending up in landfill and the oceans. And believe you me, I like things simple. So if it's about cleaning, there's a way forward and it's very exciting. And thank you for listening. I know I went over.
That's fine, Michelle. Thank you for that. It's great to see that Paragon is becoming part of the solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting.
So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Next, we have 4+ minutes from David Randall. David, the floor is yours.
That's right. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for facilitating. Thank you, Joanna, for putting together such a brilliant session today. Really enjoying it. So, yes, I'm David Randall. I run 2 co-working spaces, Canberry Works, where I am now, and Maple Works, serving about 150 people, 52 businesses. I'm in conversation about the Kingston Riverside project as well, with a new startup called Bohan. And I'm also co-chair of a startup cooperative venture called Crystallizer, about which more later. But it's great to see some of our colleagues in Crystallizer on this in this session as well. So my contribution today is about procurement and sustainability. Michelle just referenced procurement just now. And it's about partnership, which Audley was talking about earlier on. It's about growth opportunities for smaller businesses, particularly when they can get access to the buying power and the advocacy of bigger businesses, including the local anchor institutions like local government. Next slide, please. So government, big businesses and larger scale outfits like WWF are making the most impact on the climate emergency relevant to small businesses. There's no doubt about that. These 2 good old boys you can see in the picture, Thomas and Bertrand, are looking quite smug, as well they might, because they're sitting on revenues of between them more than 62 billion euros. But to their great credit, they've taken their advocacy beyond their respective businesses by setting up the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. It has an associated drive to sign up sustainable procurement ambassadors, And I signed up as an ambassador, and I suggest you will do too if you're interested. Despite the fact that I haven't got the revenues quite the same, it's quite the same level of Thomas and Bertrand. But this is a great network to get into. Next slide, please. The reality, though, for small businesses is that they don't have anything like the same access or traction to make a difference as far as climate change is concerned, although they are trying. So in the picture, you can see 5 examples of businesses that I've come into contact with through Mapleworks and Cambryworks, all of whom are doing fantastic work. Lisa's been working with Damon and the others on the Radbot project, which is about getting smart radiator valves into people's homes. An amazing, absolutely amazing project called Puzzle Phone. Ben May, one of my co-workers, has been on, which is about reducing the wastage in the mobile phone industry by having sort of interchangeable parts. So if something goes wrong, you don't have to throw away the whole phone. But it's been very, very hard for them to get up and running, despite the fact they had European funding, despite the fact that it was an international project. So supply chains and procurement are absolutely critical in getting these really great small business-led initiatives off the ground. Next slide, please. So there is a way, or there are ways in, 2 of which I'm highlighting here. These are strategies. One of them is called community wealth building. The other is social value. These strategies could really open up supply chains for small businesses. And these strategies were put in place to do exactly that. I haven't got time to go into detail, but community wealth building is about adapting spend by local anchor institutions to channel more contracting to local businesses. And social value is about imaginative contracting, which can involve social action like community wealth building. So the 2 are similar in many ways. But where are the actual opportunities for small businesses? Next slide, please. So we've heard about some already. And of course, there is growth in the services like the ones on the left in this slide. And others on the call have mentioned them, like Will and Simons, and these are, David Simons, and these are great businesses that are, Sophie too, that are taking advantage of these opportunities. Relatively, though, they're not labor intensive. And this is the problem when it comes to the green economy. Who's going to benefit? You've got a situation in the UK at large where there's been, partly as a result of COVID, partly because of underlying changes in the economy, there's large-scale unemployment. And we're led to believe in sort of government policy that the green economy is going to hoover up some of these jobs. But we need to have a conversation about how we can use community wealth building, social value to improve the job prospects of people who don't have the same skills as someone like Sophie or Will, people who've lost their jobs in retail, people who have just had to find something else to do when the airline industry went belly up, etc. Which leads me to my final slide, please. So this is about collaborative networks. Audley mentioned the importance of collaborative networks. This whole session today is establishing a collaborative network, which I know is going to continue. Joanna told me about something that she's involved with the Mayor's STG Knowledge Hub. Right now, across the South London Partnership, not just Kingston, there's a fantastic innovation network that's been established with £6.5 million worth of the Mayor's funding, called Big Knowledge, which you know, you can find out about if you drop me a message or just Google it, Big Knowledge. There's Kate Rayworth, who introduced the donut economics model some years ago, who's doing amazing work, is encouraging people to get involved in local clusters. These are called donut economics action labs. That's another opportunity for us to pile into if we want to connect. And Crystallizer, the initiative that I'm involved with, along with actually many others really have been contacted about it, is an emerging platform specifically for the South London sub-region, the same as the Big Knowledge area, including Kingston. It's a platform for small businesses to connect with bigger businesses within community wealth building and social value, the aforementioned. And that won't be enough on its own. We've got to find ways of de-risking the participation of small businesses in this activity, which means helping them to scale and helping them to get funding, which brings us to investment. And there's so many interesting new strategies around investment to enable small businesses to get involved with the green economy. I'm just going to drop, if I may, in the chat some links. The links to, first of all, Unfound, which is the accelerator that we're on at the moment to try to scale this cooperative business. We're one of only six startup cooperatives that Co-ops UK and the Cooperative Bank are helping to get established. That kicks off tomorrow, so it's very timely, this whole thing. And please do look at the LinkedIn network that we've established. It's called Crystallizer Network Posts. Anybody who wants to talk about Crystallizer, find out more about it, please post a message in there. And we look forward to your participation, and we'll need your participation because as the accelerator progresses, we're going to need interaction with other businesses. Thank you very much. I finished.
David, powerful stuff. Looking forward to seeing that platform, key and very important, bringing sort of social value, collaborative and community, which frankly is what the Chamber does well, and as a community we do well. So hopefully we can do something here in Kingston on that. Now is the time for sort of panel discussion. Anyone got any? I mean, I've got a few tame questions here, but I'm sure that the people here have got some far more interesting questions to pose to these informative panelists than I have. But I will kick it off to give you a time to give me some cutting edge questions. David and other people have mentioned barriers preventing business from becoming greener, and how can these be removed? I mean, I've got some ideas, but it's not about me. So how can we, quickly, hopefully quicker, remove some of these barriers? It may well be that it's compliance procedures. It may well be that it's regulatory requirements in financial sectors so they can get involved. That's my shtick. But what sort of questions have we got out there we can throw out? But I will start with what prevents business from becoming greener, and how can these be removed?
Andrew?
Anyone? Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at this, so anyone would be great. Thank you.
Okay. That's a really good question, I think. And I think years ago, nobody really would know the answer. But just by clearly having this today, we're on the right route. And because we're on the right route, we're actually researching and we're going back. So if whatever business you have, you may just look within it and say, right, what do we have and where can we make that greener just by that? And that could be from something like where you go for a coffee and understand, just for an example, what we do every day, we go for a coffee, we get a takeaway cup. Some cups are eco and some cups aren't. Some lids now have the recyclable rating on them to show you that can be recycled, some don't. Now, does that mean they can't be recycled? So just starting with our own little environments and seeing how we can change it will then help our businesses look to go in other avenues and learn more, and then share that and talk about it.
Thank you. Will?
Yeah, sure. I've got some answers on this. I guess my perspectives may be different. So we are often helping bigger businesses try to, transform to being lower carbon. Okay, so it's often not the wider sustainability agenda, of like local ecology and stuff like that. So it's rather focused on carbon emissions. But I think there's a number of factors, and they are changing fast. So I think there's that effect of what are my neighbours doing and what are other businesses doing? So I think there's a very big impact of changing market mentality, and businesses follow others. And I think for many businesses, it's for a long time been acceptable for them to talk about being green, but it's not something they have regarded necessarily as commercially important. And now that others are doing that, I've seen very recently very big changes in that. And an example of that would be that if we took existing investment criteria in businesses, you know, everything has to have a payback and has to be commercially viable. And now we work with a lot of big blue chip companies now who will consider projects to reduce their carbon emissions that might actually cost them more money than their current operating position. And that is a very new change. I think another challenge for businesses as well has been availability of alternative options or alternative ways of doing things. So I mentioned, I think when I was speaking about decarbonising heat, so how do businesses stop using gas, for example? And I think it's only very recently that technology is becoming readily available to have alternatives to that. So I think there's that's also a barrier. So there are a few things that come to mind for me, but I also think that just that bigger consumer pressure and changing expectations in the wider world, and that's a slow burner, but I think social acceptability is a huge driver, and wishing to do what your neighbour's doing.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. That's great stuff. For a lot of these businesses, of course, it is about return on capital, return on investment, but they've got to see they've got to change, and they've got to change quickly. I've got a number of questions are coming in, flying in here now. While it's just going through them. Right, from Alison. Question for Michelle. To what extent are you finding that human behaviour change is making a significant difference in your client organisations? That's an interesting one.
Well, yes. So I deal with mainly the office managers who run the businesses. And if you've got them on board, then you've basically mastered the office, because the habits in the office definitely need nurturing, and they need spoon feeding, from the most simple of things as having a food waste. Not many offices have food waste. So staff put their sandwich wrappers in the recycling bin with a bit of sandwich in it and totally contaminates the bin. We're not recycling police, so the cleaners aren't required to go through the rubbish and sort. So all that effort that they're trying to put in place and have all these lovely recycling bins, it doesn't always work. So when you've got the office manager involved and you're sharing that with them and you're implementing it in a much more bigger way in the office, then it starts to work. And it's quite easy to have a food waste bin, but in businesses you need to pay for it. But it's not that expensive if you shop around. So yeah, it's changing. This is an office-based environment. We do other environments, but the office-based environment, yeah, that's something that still needs work. But if you've got the office manager on board, or even the CEO, then you're fine. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it sounds good. Will, I'm interested, actually, working in the pub industry, the impact of that question, if you can remember it, in your sector.
Can you repeat the question for me? That would be really helpful, because I've been busy listening to the answer.
Yeah, sorry, that's fine. It was from Alison, and I've now got to go back and find that.
I'm doing the same thing. Okay, yeah. So to what extent are you finding that human behaviour change is making a significant difference in your client organisations? Well, I think that's quite significant, but I think you can look at that on different levels, I guess, like I was mentioning before. So I think if we talked about the pub chains, I'm not sure that there's a great, they're not, if there is a big drive there from their consumers, I'm not sure that they're fully aware of it or engaged with that yet. So part of what we're trying to address with things like the Green Mark initiative is to make sustainability more visible for these pub companies that we're working with. So they're putting a badge up on the wall, they're declaring their credentials, and they talk much more freely about it, for example, on their things like their pub Facebook pages. So I think the pub industry views that engagement with the customer as very important, but is maybe not fully matured in a way of how to best make that engagement with their consumers on this sort of issue.
Great, thanks. Excellent answer. We've crossed this question, but overall, general question: how can tools and technologies enable businesses to decarbonize and make savings? I mean, this is a crucial question. Sophie, thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on that. So yeah, I mean, for us, I think a lot of it is around providing people with better data, because we believe that actually if you've got good data on things, then you can make better decisions. Whereas if you're just sort of blindly stumbling forward thinking what might be the best thing to do, I think, you know, a lot of the stuff with sustainability is sometimes it is a little bit counterintuitive, and sometimes the sort of what might feel like the appropriate green step might actually you know, not be the best thing that you can do. Like, we're currently working on a project to make inhalers more sustainable, and initially we went into it thinking that the clear thing to do would be to change the material of the actuator, the plastic bit that the canister sits in. We're not dealing with the gases, which are the worst bit, but yeah, that's not part of the project. But actually we found that the material isn't the main problem, and actually if we could just get people to reuse the actuator, that would be a far better outcome. And so it's, you know, it's doing that research and kind of getting that data, and I think that that's where, to me, you know, technology and kind of tools can really help to provide people with that information and guide people to what can be really complicated, you know, through complicated kind of decision making processes, and make it you know, make it easier to kind of alight on a kind of, you know, a way forward, basically. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you. With respect to the initial conversation with Audley's comments about the importance of creating a landscape for investment and innovation, create the commercial case and business will follow. So Audley's comments were about the importance of creating a landscape for investment and innovation, and commercial case and business will follow. Anyone got any ideas on that? Is that clear? Question?
I've got an idea about it, Andrew. I think, I mean, Audley is in Kingston University, which is part of the knowledge exchange. And I think the platform that particular initiative has provided for people in Kingston is a really important one, because it does connects businesses with the knowledge community, and they can be drivers of change that can pull in other organizations as well. So I think that's a really brilliant platform. Eventually crystallizer will as well, but we're a startup, and actually Big Knowledge is as well, but it's got the backing of 6 universities already, so it can go further and faster.
Thank you. Green credentials. How does it help to attract talent within your businesses?
Good question, I think. Is that okay for me to answer?
Of course, thank you very much. Carry on, yeah.
Well, we had our first trip down to the pub last Friday, a good few of our team, and we had, I guess, an extensive chat about that, because I guess on the face of it, our business is very green. But I guess I employ a lot of young people, you know, who are, I guess, sub 30 years old. And actually, I think that their attitudes are really quite different to people of 1 or 2 generations older, by and large, in that I think it's not all about salary and career progression in the same way. There are just another whole set of factors that are important to certainly the people we employ, much more so than when I entered the place of work. And so I made a comment just on the chat a minute ago about how I used to work in the soft drinks industry, and I left primarily because I felt uncomfortable. I liked what I did every day, but I felt uncomfortable that we were making drinks and marketing them to children effectively, and I didn't feel right about that. So I chose to do something where I felt I could make a positive impact and get up every day feeling happy about that. And for me, 15 or 20 years ago, that was a conversation that I was quite guarded about having with people, because people didn't get that. And I remember my parents' neighbours having all sorts of chats with my parents about, well, why is he giving up this job? And he's got a company car, you know. I never had a company car, and you know, it was all of that. And for me, that was unimportant. But now I find that as I interview people, that sort of criteria basis, you know, completely changed, and people talk about that all the time. You know, we have sort of ethical vegans in our team, and that just didn't exist 20 years ago. So there's my answer to the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great. Sophie, do you have an answer to that question? Green credentials help to attract talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still relatively small, although our team is growing. And I definitely think that for us, like being a mission-driven business, has really helped us to find equally kind of sort of passionate, driven people to join our team. So for us, I think it's definitely been a kind of a tick in terms of people seeing us and wanting to work for a company like ours. And you know, I'm grateful for that, because I think especially if you are doing something that's sort of, you know, it is sort of a bit of a mission, then I think it helps to have people who share your vision and kind of want to get where you're going in terms of you know, that big picture sort of ambition. So yeah, I do think it's a benefit, and I think that it, you know, more broadly as well, we're definitely seeing that, you know, more people are bothered about this, and I think that we're going to see sustainability sort of, I hope, becoming, you know, absolutely front and center in all businesses, from, you know, from recruitment sort of level up to kind of reporting to the board. And I think, you know, that's when we get that kind of happening, I think that's when we're going to see the real shift. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, well, we are starting to see it, aren't we? The social shift, much needed. Michelle, your thoughts on green credentials helping to attract talent?
Well, that's really interesting. So a lot of my staff are cleaners, so they're used to using products every day. And I remember when I formed Paragon, that some of my teams that came over with me were like, well, where's the bleach? You know, and not that we actually used bleach really before, but you know, the line scale removers, and you know, it's cleaning at the end of the day. And I said, no, that we don't use that word here. And so now for them, through my enthusiasm, I think they're like, yay, you know, and they hate it now to use traditional cleaning products with other customers that they may have themselves, or what they do. They don't work for me full time. But I think but the experience that I've had with other companies who are driven, Delphis Eco for one, other companies that really want to make a difference, is that you have to have that passion. You have to want to make a difference. If you want to make a difference, you'll do your research. If you do your research, you'll get knowledge, and then you'll share that knowledge. And I think, you know, I'm sort of like, you know, 30 odd years in, but we've got all the rest coming through, and the Gretas of the world, and everybody who wants to listen to David Attenborough, and they don't want to have us leave them and their children's children with a planet that's just not going to be worth wanting to come here again. You know, you wouldn't want to, like, why would you want to come on this planet if you know you're just going to, it's going to be distracted? And so with the enthusiasm that you share, what we all share, filters through. And it's very refreshing to talk to people who have the same mindset and like to hear and share with you, because sometimes it is a struggle when you start talking about plant-based cleaning products. Just way over their head. But yeah, that's my experience. But just share knowledge is great. I mean, what I've heard today as well has been absolutely great, and I never knew that existed. So with all these businesses, how wonderful.
I agree. I share your thoughts. It is interesting. David, green credentials help to attract talent. From your perspective, please.
Which one? Which David?
Yes, David Randall. Sorry. So green credentials help to attract talent.
They do. I mean, I think the biggest attractive talent at the moment, I think, is more experiential in terms of what people can, of how people can move ahead in their lives as a group. I think people, particularly millennials, are relatively more social. They want human contact, and they want to take that human contact sort of kind of to the next level through kind of collective action. So I think it's that social interaction that's probably more attractive for businesses than what they're doing, particularly as far as something like green tech is concerned. That would be my impression of that.
Thank you. Next question for the panel, starting with Will. Do you think, this is from Lisa, do you think businesses are engaging positively with the green agenda, or do they see it as a tick box exercise?
Okay, another really good question. So I think historically, let's cover off the tick box exercise. I think historically there's been a tendency for many businesses to deal with elements of certainly compliance or the green agenda in a tick box way. But I think as knowledge of this area grows and transparency grows, I think it becomes more difficult for businesses to do that, because I think they're at much greater risk of being uncovered, and the importance of being uncovered is more significant. So I think that in the first instance that, but I do definitely see an inclination for people to want to do something about it, but really to do the minimum amount they can get away with. That still exists. That's life, you know. But I do see a material shift now in the marketplace about what businesses are actually genuinely doing about their green credentials, and I think in many ways that's very recent, and I think that's also currently very interesting, given that we've had a COVID pandemic for a year and very, very difficult trading, position for many businesses. And I think it's laudable that many companies that we work with are still prepared to invest in this area and see that as an important part of their future. And I think we, in our portfolio of companies we've certainly worked with historically, there are those that through this time continue to thrive and invest regardless, not necessarily just that as a result of their sector. So we have, for example, pub and brewing businesses that continue to invest heavily over the last 12 months in this sort of change in the face of no revenue. And we have those businesses who I think are the laggards and don't invest in their business and don't take this seriously, but they're fundamentally the same ones that will go out of business anyway. So I think for those that view this as an important commercial opportunity, they're the ones that will thrive.
Thanks, Will. Sophie, engaging, do you think businesses are engaging positively with the green agenda, or is it just a tick box?
I mean, I agree with Will that I think it's a mixed bag, right? As in, I think there are definitely, companies out there who really care about this and who are, putting effort and investment and time into doing this, and then there's people who don't care about it at all. I think from our perspective, this is kind of why we've got this idea around passive compliance, and and although we're referring to compliance in that sense in terms of waste compliance, but I think the kind of concept applies across the board, that actually why don't we try and make it as easy as possible for people to do the thing we want them to do? So if we want people to be more sustainable, why is that option the much more complicated, much harder, more expensive, difficult route to go down? Shouldn't we be trying to invest as a country in ways to make those decisions easier, so that it's that people, you're not relying on people wanting to invest in it and wanting to put the effort into it, and instead you've made it that the thing that we need people to do is the easy thing for people to do. And I think that's what we should be working towards, is systems and processes that support the correct decisions. Because in terms of climate change and the climate emergency, as we saw from the first speakers on the event, if we don't make these radical, massive changes soon, we are going to be in really deep trouble. And I think the other thing that I always think of when I'm asked this sort of question is, as a business, if you want to stay in business for any real length of time, you are going to have to invest in this, because you're going to want a functioning economy and a functioning society and a functioning environment to be able to continue to trade and to continue to be in business. And so it can't be something that is a nice to have. It has to be something that is absolutely central to all businesses in terms of their survival, and we should be making it easy for people to make those decisions.
Thank you, Sophie. That's certainly told them, isn't it? Michelle, do you have thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I agree with Will and Sophie, of course, and to date, yeah, it has been a tick box, but that's because it's been just allowed to be a tick box. But now things are changing, so definitely a way forward. I'll give you an example of something, and then it's like when you want to do something, you're going to find out about it, and then you're going to continue to try and research and make that thing happen. And I think what everyone here is doing is that looking at reducing carbon. So for example, the products that we use, traditionally used from virgin plastic, which is we all know that name now. But there was a mission to create our own waste into post-consumer recycled plastic, and for 5 years they were told that can't be done. But they wouldn't leave it. They just, no, it can be done. Let's find a way to do it. And absolutely, it can be done, and it is done. And now there's a closed loop completely. So obviously for the products that we use, because this is what we do, every single bottle is made out of UK plastic milk bottles.
Excellent.
And so it can be done, and it reduces 70% of the carbon emissions that would have been there before. So that's massive. So I think you just have to share that, and it just builds momentum.
Thank you, Michelle. David, apologies, we are running out of time, but over to you. Oh, right, we may be leaving. Give it your best shot. Sorry. All right, we're losing. That's it, the breakout room.
I think we're running out of time, basically, but I think it's great. This session has been fantastic. We need to continue it somehow, and I'm sure we will. I think Joanna's got some plans to convene us again to talk about these things.
So I don't think I'm the chair on this, but I think everybody has gone. I'm seeing a box which says leave the breakout rooms. So I think that's us done. If we press the leave breakout room, and I think we'll then return to the main stage, maybe just after a quick break. So, but thanks all. That was a really interesting session. Really enjoyable.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Worth saving the chat as well.
We'll
Before you
save the
go.
chats. Yeah, we've recorded it as well. So yes,
Awesome.
we'll
Okay.
have it all. Thank you all. See you
Super.
on the other side.